Approaching each day with intention means having a plan and being focused. It also means having some enthusiasm and being ready to attack that goal or vision each day. Heyo, what's going on? You're listening to episode 52 of the Perspective Podcast, and I'm your host, Scotty.D.Russell of Perspective Collective. This show exists to encourage you to carve out time to build something for yourself, and I want to do everything within my abilities to help you take your creative game to the next level. So, quick announcements. Weekly episodes are back, if you didn't notice. Last week was episode 51. I'm back on 52. I've been doing this every other weekly format for, a couple months now due to my sanity. I had a lot of freelance going on. I had a lot of speaking engagements and conferences I was attending. So I'm starting to get through that crazy, hectic schedule, and I'm getting back into the rotation. I've missed it so much. I'm stoked to be back. And if for some crazy reason I'm not able to hit a week, I'll let you know in my newsletter, which you can sign up for at perspective-collectiveteam.com. That's where I pretty much give any type of instant updates. Those people will get it first, and they have direct access to me for questions. Also, now that I'm going back to weekly format, to be completely honest and frank with you, whoever Frank is, I need some help. I'm looking to hire someone to help me edit episodes. It's really hard to keep up with everything right now between the day job, going back to weekly, doing freelance, and, between getting help with that and maybe even help setting up some of my newsletter, I'm looking for it. So pass the word along. Get a hold of me at scotty@perspective-collective.com. Email me there, and, maybe we can work something out. All right, so in 2017, I've been a bit of a conference whore. I've been to a lot of conferences, more than I ever have in my life, but honestly, it's all for good reasons. As I mentioned in episode 49, conferences is where I've been able to find my people, people I can relate to and build relationships outside of conferences. Like, I've met some of my best friends from conferences. I have access to so many people who I can ask questions to if there's something I'm struggling with, whether it's like pricing or, new tech equipment recommendations. So conferences have led me to the right people. And another reason I've attended so many is because I want to scope conferences out that I'd like to speak at one day, as not all conferences are the same. So I've gotten a good pulse on some places I'd really like to, put my name in the hat in for the future. And as I wrap up 2017, I just attended my final conference of the year in Austin, Texas. The event was the first pop-up crop conference held by my good friend Matt Dawson of Studio Gray, and his Instagram is Stay Gray Ponyboy. Like, he is a hell of a person, man. He's so talented and just doing massive things, and he couldn't have done it without his wife Ariadna. She's the shit too. And in the past, I've talked about Crop Conference in Baton Rouge. I got to speak there in April, and I actually had Matt Dawson on episode 37 to tell his story. But Pop-Up Crop is different because it's basically just a one-day event filled with powerhouse creatives who either spoke or taught a workshop. The lineup was stacked with speakers like Jason Craig, Lauren Dickens, Steve Wolf, Brian Steely, and Aaron Draplin. I personally had the opportunity to speak on the Good Type panel with my homegirl Brooke Robinson, who's the Good Type creator, Bobby Dixon, who works for Industry Print Shop, and Drew Lakin, another talented designer and lettering artist. Industry Print Shop was there. They were not only the main sponsor of the conference, but they also hosted the after party, and they taught a workshop as well. So plenty of good times were had, and I'm always one who wants to channel my reflections into a summary. In the past, I've had amazing experiences at places, but I just was on to the next thing. I never took a moment to kind of decompress and reflect on things. So putting out an episode summary of things allows me to do that. And I feel the best way to share this summary is to relay some of the biggest takeaways you can apply to your creative practices. So following are my top 3 takeaways that I feel will resonate with you to help you finish the week strong, and finishing out finish out the rest of 2017 strong going into the new year. That's what I meant to say. All right, so you can find the show notes to this episode at perspective-collective.com/52. If you think this show could help someone else, please just give it a share on social media, and you can find the episode artwork and connect with me over on Instagram at Perspective Podcast. Let's get into the show. Starting off with takeaway number 1, calling this Mind the Gaps. And this one's by Jason Craig, who is another friend of the podcast, and his episode 43 visit has been a listener favorite, so I recommend you checking that one out. But Jason has a gift outside of his design work. The way that this dude can weave his storytelling and analogies together is legendary, and I mean it. He finds a way to punch you in the gut with his humor, yet still drop a ton of value. The one thing that stood out to me the most was when he talked about minding the gaps. Throughout your life, and especially in your creative career, you're going to have plenty of times where you get knocked on your ass. And those moments when you're on your ass, those are the low gaps between the moments where things are great and maybe they can't be going any better. Without these gaps, it's hard to appreciate when things do go right. And those shitty times in between the highlights are the moments who shape who you become. When things aren't working in your favor, mind the gaps and know that better times are ahead of you. Takeaway number 2, approach every day with intention. Next up is my brother from another mother, Tony Diaz, and he's the head honcho in charge of Industry Print Shop. I'm being extremely sincere when I say this, but Tony is legitimately one of the most generous souls I've ever met, and he has an incredible story. I'll be having him on the show sooner than later, as you need to know what he's doing for our creative community. And before he led a screen printing workshop, he gave a super brief talk, and within that small amount of time, I caught a little nugget I thought was worthwhile to share with you. So Tony talked about how he approaches each day with intention. And this has helped him scale Industry to one of the biggest print shops in the nation. And approaching each day with intention means having a plan and being focused. It also means having some enthusiasm and being ready to attack that goal or vision each day. I want to challenge you to think about how you're approaching your work each day. Are you winging shit? Or are you attacking it with enthusiasm and intention? Takeaway number 3, break borders between life and work. And this final takeaway comes from the insanely talented designer, Lauren Dickens. She dropped a smorgasbord of takeaways. And not gonna lie, I've been dying to say smorgasbord for the longest time. I even Google searched on how to spell it just so I could plug it in here, but anyways, I digress, but Lauren dropped a smorgasbord of takeaways accompanied by some of the most polished design slides I've ever seen. And to be frank, there's Frank again, I've never been more jealous of someone's slide deck. The type hierarchy, the type combinations, and how she blended them in with custom illustrations, her slides were amazing. But not only were her slides amazing, she had a ton of awesome talking points too that range from the power of putting on pants when you're a freelancer, to being in charge of your own version of success, to understanding that your work is a wild animal and that you need to set it free. So out of all the points that she went through, the one that caught my attention the most was break the borders between life and work. Basically, she stated that the things that make you unique make your work unique. And I think this is going to make a killer episode, in the coming weeks too, to dive into this a little bit more. But it parallels a lot with what Andy J. Miller of the Creative Pep Talk podcast says about finding yourself within your work. So I want to ask you, what are those things that are different about you that nobody else can replicate? What are those weird quirks that make you you, that maybe you think make you weird? To me, I think those are the things that help you stand out if you can find ways to introduce that into your work. And honestly, this is something I struggle with too. And it's something I'm really taking an inward look in myself, figuring out what are those things that make me unique and how can I introduce those into my work. So, I'm challenging you to think about that, but I'm also challenging myself. To wrap things up, I want you to get out of your bubble. I talked about this again back in episode 49, but get outside of your little bubble. Like me, I was living in a bubble of Iowa for the longest time, and I felt so restricted and constrained from finding growth within my creative game. Attending conferences has easily been one of the most beneficial things I can say that has brought me the most opportunities and the most growth. The relationships that you'll cultivate and the new skills you'll manifest will launch your creative career out of this stratosphere. I don't know, but it's going to make a huge difference. Pop-Up Crop, it was special. And they have some big plans for the second one next year, and I don't want to spoil that. But in the meantime, the full crop, the multi-day event is happening in Baton Rouge next April in 2018. And the lineup just got released. It's safe to say it's pretty huge, man. Matty Ice, Matt Dawson did a great job of, curating a shit ton of talent. You can check out the lineup over at Crop BR, as in Baton Rouge, so cropbr.com. And I'm telling you, this lineup is legit. And I may or may not be teaching a workshop there too. So it's not fully announced yet, but you're pretty much the first to hear it. So keep your eyes peeled. Crop is amazing. Baton Rouge is amazing. Matt Dawson, all those folks are awesome. It's a hell of a time. Can't recommend it enough. So cropbr.com. I realize that overviews of conferences may not always be the most exciting content in the world, but that's why I really tried to dig down deep, reflect on, the moments that really stood out to me the most. And I try to compile them and give you something actionable, something that, can benefit you wherever you are in your creative path or wherever you are in life. If I do give overviews of things, just know that I'm really trying to pull things out that really impacted me that I think can help you too, to take your creativity to the next level. That's the whole point of this show. Switching things up, I need to just give a huge thank you to those who are backing the show on Patreon, patreon.com/Perspective Podcast. For real, your support and your pledges has essentially covered all my operating costs of the podcast now. And before, everything was coming out of my pocket. And it's because of people like you who are basically helped me get to the point where I can go back to weekly format and feel comfortable and not so stressed out about shit. So thank you so much. If you want to be a part of this and help the show grow too, you can do this over at patreon.com/Perspective Podcast. And not only are you helping me, but I'm trying to give back to you with other rewards and things when you become a pledge backer. Again, patreon.com/Perspective Podcast. And another way to support the show is by leaving a quick ratings and review over on iTunes. It not only helps the show get discovered, but it gives me an opportunity to give you a nice little public thank you, like this week's rating and review. And this one comes from my new friend, Trey Sprinkle. Trey says, I found this podcast at a time when I needed it the most. I was leaving my agency after 16 years to go solo and was having some doubts about the move. Scotty is wise beyond his years. Oh, that's weird to read off, but Scotty is wise beyond his years, and this podcast was exactly what I needed to keep moving forward, keep showing up, and do my own thing. And so far, it's been working. Whether you're working in-house at an agency, starting a side hustle, or launching your own gig, these podcasts are full of truth, encouragement, and the knowledge you need to have the right perspective every day. Trey, you are the man. It was a pleasure getting to meet you, bump into you a couple times, and then actually have a moment for you and I to have a good conversation, hang out, get a drink together. I can't thank you enough for the kind words you told me that night and through the podcast here. You're the man, dude. Hopefully we get to link up soon. Another thank you I need to give out is to my homie Nick Jenkins of Blookah for all the dope theme music you hear on this show. Nick is an incredible soul as well. You can hear more of his music over at soundcloud.com/Blookah. That's BLOOKAH. And you can also find him on Instagram. Go say what's up to him. Give him a follow. And as you finish off your week, I want to encourage you to keep showing up, keep putting in the work, and keep creating. You got this.